What's up? So today I want to walk you through how I bought my first two real estate investments and how you could buy your first one too. So a little bit of story. Me and my friend Justin, who's also on the Financial Illiterates, link in the description for that podcast, just started real estate investing this last year. So we closed on our first house in, I believe it was November of 2020, and our second house in January of 2021. So that was good timing. The property values has gone up great since then. Very nice. Anyways, it's a tough thing to get into. And when I say that we bought our first real estate investment in November of 2020, what I don't say when I say that is that we had been working at starting this real estate investing for over a year. We actually incorporated the business structure, which there were many months leading up to that, for this business back in March of 2020, if I remember right. Could have even been sooner than that. Earlier than that. Sooner? Earlier. One of the two. I don't know. So we've been trying to get into real estate for a long time, and it really wasn't limited by the cash. We did have the cash to close on our first house. Now our second one was a little more questionable on whether we had the cash to do that or not. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what was really holding us up was understanding what we even wanted to buy. You see, there's so many options in real estate. There are multifamily, there are single family, there's sort of the hybrid with the duplexes and the triplexes, which are sort of multifamily and sort of single family. And then on top of that, there's areas where you're investing for appreciation. There's areas where you're investing in cash flow. There's luxury real estate. There's non-luxury real estate. There's everything under the sun. And how on earth do you figure out where to start? Well, where we started is we consumed a crap ton of content. We watched everything we could of Grant Cardone, everything from me, Kevin, everything from Graham Stephan. We read books from the guys, the people, you know, the people, the rental people. Bigger Pockets. That's who I'm thinking of, Bigger Pockets. I read all their books, listened to their podcast, and we just learned everything we could about every area of the market. And by doing that, we were able to take out different pieces, and I've talked about this in previous videos, that sort of resonated with us. And where we ended up landing was single family homes. Part of that was because it was much lower cost to get into. Part of that was because we could get into it with 30-year fixed rate mortgages versus a multifamily where we're going to be getting commercial loans, and that's a little bit of a different beast, and we felt we needed to be a little bit more established and have a lot more capital to get into it. Now, we didn't get into duplexes because, well, we didn't end up investing in an area that had very many duplexes. So once we sort of figured out the asset class, now we were starting to figure out where we even wanted to invest. So we had looked at a lot of different places. We looked at Austin for one. We've looked at Las Vegas. We looked at Boise, Idaho. And then sort of lastly, we ended up looking in the Tampa area. Now, the Tampa area was interesting to us because that is where I grew up. So I know that area very, very well. And that's why we did, in fact, end up landing on Tampa. One, because, well, it's in Florida and we don't have income taxes there, so very nice. And number two, I know that area extremely well. So a lot of people on the YouTube platform that are talking about real estate investing, like me, Kevin, say do not invest in out-of-state real estate. And I think that's sort of kind of true. I think the one caveat here is don't invest anywhere that you do not know really, really well. You see, the Tampa market, I know incredibly well. I lived there for 12, 15 years, something like that. I don't know, a lot. So I know where it's growing, where it's not growing. I know the good neighborhoods, the bad neighborhoods, and on top of that, my family still lives down in the area, so I go visit there for multiple weeks, almost a month, every single year. So I get to see sort of the snapshot changes over time. Now, once you've picked your asset type, then you've picked your market. Then you need to find out what kind of property will actually make you the returns that you want. So for us, we were investing in the Tampa market in cash flowing properties, especially single family properties. Well, they're a little harder to come by, and the ones that you can come by are in the areas that I didn't necessarily want to be our first investment. You know, a little more rundown, a little more questionable, and that's just not really where I wanted to start managing properties. So we ended up investing for appreciation. Now, investing for appreciation means that basically our cash flow is going to be zero-ish. So the cash flow on both of the properties that we purchased, in fact, both the properties we purchased are next door to each other, so they are identical deals in almost every single way. The cash flow on those properties are basically zero. I think maybe they net $100 a year. Again, assuming we've budgeted accurately for maintenance and all of those things, and those are sort of spiky and up and down and, you know, bookkeeping problems. But on average, they should basically cash flow us zero. They should pay for themselves and not lose us money, but they're not also making us cash flow. But that's okay, because in this market, over the last 10 to 15 years, they've had an average appreciation of 3.3%, which is over the nation average, which I think was like 2-ish. Don't quote me on any of these. So at this point, we have our property type, we have our market, we have what we're investing for, and now it's like, how do you actually find the right deals? Well, this is what we did. We ended up breaking down all the different parts of the deal and all of our different expenses, all of our different incomes, and figuring out what an ideal deal looks like. And we even have a rating system now, which is sort of loosely put together. But let me show you the spreadsheet that we use to actually analyze our deals. So this is the spreadsheet that we use to analyze our deals. You can see up in the top here, we have all of our purchase information. So we have our purchase price, we have our down payment amount, we have closing costs. So when we were closing, this is when interest rates have just like dropped to basically nothing, and closing costs were actually pretty high in order to get the interest rate to what we needed it. We had about a $5K rehab cost on both of these, which is very, very, very minimal rehab cost. It was like we painted everything inside and a couple of carpet cleaning and regular cleaning and, you know, nothing big. And then we had a total initial investment of roughly $72,000. And this actually came within a couple of $1,000s of the final. I think our final on this property was about $75K after everything was done. So we had a rough value after rehab, which we mostly based this off of comps of $270,000. Now, of course, because there wasn't a large amount of rehab required in this property, really the after rehab value was what we bought it for, which is $265,000. So this was not what me, Kevin, would call a wedge deal, which would be ideal. We just haven't come across one of those yet. So then we poke in our mortgage information, and in this case, we had a 20% down payment, so we're looking at a $212,000 loan. We got a 3.25% interest rate for 30 years, and the interest rate was a little high at this point, just because it's an investment property and you just can't get as low of a number. Also, I had some like credit score weirdness. So our payment on that is $923 a month. So then you get down here and you get to break this down into the income and expenses, you know, what everyone loves, bookkeeping. So one of the hardest parts actually for us was figuring out what on earth we could charge for rent. There's not a whole lot of great information on how and what to charge for rent in an area, especially if there's no active rental listings right now. And even if there are, those might be mispriced because, well, they're listed and no one's renting them. So what we found to be really a good starting point was a website called stessa.com, which we originally used for tracking all of our income and expenses and things like that, but we don't anymore. But they do have the ability to purchase a rental report for like 20, 25 bucks, something like that. And that gave us a good starting point to go from. So we ended up listing this around $2,000, I believe, maybe $19.99. We ended up finding a tenant that signed an 18-month lease for a reduced rent so that we could get the rent renewal in the summertime, which would be ideal because, again, we closed on this property around Christmas time. So we ended up getting a rent of around $1,900 or $22,800 a month. And we're factoring in about a 5% vacancy rate, which feels pretty standard for the industry. So after all is said and done, we're looking at $1,805 income per month. So now we get down into the expenses. So we have real estate taxes, which are coming out roughly to about $317 a month. We have insurance of $63 a month. And then our property management is a little bit funky, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Our repairs and maintenance, we're factoring in about 10% of rent monthly, which is around $190. So far, the maintenance has been a little bit high just because we're just getting into the property, and you know, when you buy a house, stuff's broken. If you ever owned a house before, you know what I'm talking about. And then we have very, very, very little other expenses because the tenants pay all the utilities and things like that. We don't have lawns and groundkeeping because the HOA actually handles all of that. And that's where this giant HOA bill comes in. Yes, that is right. $280 a month on the HOA. But this HOA covers a once every 5 to 10 year roof replacement. They cover the exterior paint on the house, all of the landscaping upkeep, all of that stuff. It's amazing, makes the community look great, makes the house look great, reduces our CapEx costs, which also very nice. So we have a total operating expenses of about $983, so that leaves us with a net operating income of $822. Take that debt service off of there, we are cash flowing a negative $100 every single month. See what I did there? I lost money. Very good. So that's not the only picture. This is our monthly cash flow, and again, it's average. And I was gonna talk about that property management fee. So we actually manage the property ourselves through another business entity that we have. Now, we are required to pay that entity a property management fee, and the market rate is about 7%. So we pay ourselves 7% into another business that does all the property management. And because I am not local and Justin is not local to the property, we still have the need for people on site. So I actually work with my dad and pay my dad part of that rental fee to work on site and take care of all the things that need taken care of. And then I find contractors for anything else that we need. And we've actually built quite a great network there. And big thanks to John at Copeland Morgan, who's my realtor, and he's just been absolutely amazing. And one of the key things you need to find if you're thinking about doing out-of-state real estate investing, finding a great realtor that understands investors. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking, wow, this seems like a really crappy deal because you're losing $100 a month. It does kind of seem that way. But remember, we're investing for appreciation. So let's flip over here to the future return spreadsheet. This one's really fun. So this is where we get to make all sorts of assumptions and see what our return is gonna be annually over a period of time. So we're looking at averaging about a 2% annual rent increase with, again, a 2% annual expense increase. Who knows what this inflation, or not inflation, depending on the camp you're in, is gonna do to this. We're gonna stick with 2%. Like I said before, appreciation in this market is roughly 3.3%. So we break all that down and we get to look at these numbers across all of our years. So what we like to do is we like to look at our year 10 ownership IRR, which stands for the internal rate of return. It's basically an annualized number that tells you the rate of return accounting for alternative investments and time value of money and all of those other things. So actually looking at about a 9.5% annual return on this, which is a little lower than we'd like typically, but it was great for our first property and got us into the space. Our second house is actually slightly higher than this. It's just over 10%, I believe. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but something like that. And this is basically how we analyzed every single deal that we had. So then the hard part is finding one and getting an offer accepted. So we had ended up putting in, I think, 8 to 10 different offers over the period of time, over the 6 to 8 months that we were actually making offers before we finally got one accepted. And it was difficult because this market was hot in Florida. The market was dying off everywhere else, but Florida was like, what's COVID? I don't understand. What is this thing? People were still buying and selling houses like crazy. Of course, the supplies dropped like everywhere else now, but people were buying them like crazy still. So we would see offers pop up. We would have to analyze it the day it came on the MLS, and we would have to make an offer within 2 days if we had any chance at getting it. We had a couple of deals out there that I was really excited about that I was hoping to get, and we just didn't get in. We didn't offer enough, something like that. We ended up having an offer at list on this house on the very first day to get it. And the second house we got, we actually sort of got off market while my dad was at the property maintaining some things. He found out the neighbor was gonna sell his house, so we were able to be the first in line on that deal. And again, we had to offer the exact list price because, well, we were our own comps on that house. But it was a very easy deal for us to analyze because, like I said, they was basically identical. And that is now how we got into real estate for the first time. In fact, 2 real estate investments within a few months. And I'm hoping to ramp that up over time. And hopefully I can tell you what getting a commercial loan on a single family house is like because, well, I quit my job and I don't have income, and getting a conventional mortgage with no income is basically impossible. So I hope this helps. And if it helps you or helps someone you might know, share it with them, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.